Victoria Morgan's The Nutcracker at the Aronoff Center for the Arts to sold-out houses since it premiered in 2011. But on November 23, 2012, the curtain rose at the Anchorage Center for the Performing Arts in Alaska to the production of The Nutcracker with the Cincinnati Ballet. Getting to that moment was nothing short of an organizational and logistical feat. Cincinnati Ballet flew 32 dancers, 9 artistic production and administrative staff, 3 wardrobe staff, and 5 crew members to Anchorage before Thanksgiving for 6 performances of The Nutcracker. I'm Courtney Hillebuck, Corps Ballet member at the Cincinnati Ballet, and this is the story of how the Cincinnati Ballet took the show on the road to Anchorage. On November 1st, the Cincinnati Ballet's crew began loading 2 tractor trailers at the ballet's warehouse in northern Kentucky. These tractor trailers were filled with costumes, scenery props, and lighting for the almost 4,000-mile trek across the country to Alaska.
It's been packed since last year. When we do our loadout of a theater, we kind of just put it all back to where it's supposed to go. But then when we found out we were going to Alaska, we probably started, a little bit here and there months ago, but the majority of it probably just in the last week or so. That's already in the truck as wardrobe. Which doesn't seem like a lot, but once again, every one of those boxes is shoved and crammed and full of stuff. I think there's 13, plus the 2 black tutu crates. The tutus ride in a separate crate so they don't get crushed.
We were only allowed to bring 2 tractor trailers, and this show would normally go in 5. And so we had to leave some things behind, and the things that we left behind include these tables here. And Linden Transport arranged all of the transportation of the goods. So I arranged the rental of the trailers, the weighing and loading of the trailers. And so we had these 2 long-term lease trailers that then they sent drivers to pick up, trucked them to Seattle, and then they were loaded onto a barge, and then the barge sailed to Anchorage, and then Linden got them from the dock to this loading dock here at the Atwood Theater. On the way back, we can't do that because they don't sail the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So we load out. So we have 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday, 2 shows Sunday, and then we load out on Monday. So we're going to take all this stuff and put it back in the trailers and strip the house and all that stuff. And then we fly back to Cincinnati. The trucks will be driven over the road all the way from Anchorage to Cincinnati through Canada, which is why we had to do all the weighing and all that, because we have to have a carnet for the purposes of customs. If we were to wait until the next boat sailed, we would not get the trailers back to Cincinnati in time to clean the costumes ahead of our Cincinnati load-in. So the logistics of this is actually very intricate.
Taking the Nutcracker to a different theater required some changes to the ballet by Victoria Morgan and the production staff.
It took an immense amount of logistical support between figuring out what scenery could come and what scenery had to stay in Cincinnati, what parts of the show we could change and adapt to fit into a space that's smaller than the one we're used to performing in. We've had to update all the queuing and paperwork based upon the changes that we made as far as what scenery pieces are here and what we've left at home, what props we don't have. We've changed the number of dancers, so she had to change choreography and adapt choreography to lesser numbers of dancers. 2 really big tractor trailers full of stuff only. It is, when we load into the theater in Cincinnati, it will be 7 trucks. When we load it into this space, it's 2. So it'll be it's juggling and all of those logistics is basically what it took to get us here. So, and having really good communication with Alaska. How many hours did we spend? We've been planning this tour for since we closed the show in Cincinnati last year. We started talking about tour, and we managed to get the majority of the show on the trucks. We're not using some of the little things like the kitchen practicals and the kitchen dressing that hang from the ceiling, the garlic and stuff, we're not using that. The roses in flowers, we're not using those. What else do we leave? Oh, the ornaments and stuff and snowflakes that come in snow. Those did not make the trip with us. The chandeliers and kitchen did not make the trip with us. The doors actually in this production got shipped early and will live here because we rebuilt the downstage parlor doors for our Cincinnati production. So we sent those permanently to Alaska, so they won't come back with us. But we have our own sets. So we've been planning it for months. It's months and months of logistical planning and work.
The Cincinnati Ballet's crew arrived 1 week before the first performance for the load-in and setup of the theater. They were assisted by 35 union members from Anchorage.
Kind of getting these back into shape because with packing and traveling such a long distance and things sort of getting tumbled around, which is just accidental, of course. They have to be sort of re-steamed into shape. Some have to be completely reset. The two Claires have to be completely redone because they're just not really looking that great. There are 22 wigs in the show.
This show, because it has so much scenery and so much scenery that's different with the parlor, which is in purples and off-whites and greens, and the kitchen, which is in green, and snow, which is all scrim and translucent, and the candy, which is all pinks and purples. Each of the different sets had to have their own set of lights to light it. We couldn't just, a lot of times in dance, you can say, this side light is going to be blue and we're going to use it all the time. Here we had to pick very specific things so that most of the lights over here are just used for one scene, which is really hard and also means that that's why there's so many. The plot is giant. There are here, though slightly less than Cincinnati, there are about 500 lighting fixtures just over stage alone. In Cincinnati, it adds about another 100 lights. We had to reduce the design down a little bit for touring so that it could fit in the space. We bought a bunch of new LED lights, which LED is becoming sort of the new designer's paintbrush as lighting designers. They light all of the scenery. They also light the dancers. Most of the parlor scene is lit primarily with the LED lights. The LED lights do the majority of the lighting work in the whole entire parlor, which is amazing that 20 lights out of 500 illuminates everyone. So the process of figuring out the plot, spent about a month and a half picking color. There are many, many sheets of paper with different color combinations to try to get the color to work out for the design, which is fun. To me, that's the best part. Then another good month where I listened to the score and came up with the cueing and how I wanted to cue it by watching the videotape of rehearsal every day. I would get sent a segment when something was finished. I would watch that, then I would sit down with the score and start putting cues in the score. The snow section has almost 300 cues in it, which is unknown in snow. The same thing with Act 2. It's an incredibly cue heavy show. I really wanted the lighting to be filled with as much spectacle as the Nutcracker should have. I wanted you to blink your eyes and the lights would be totally different every time you opened your eyes. That to me was part of the magic of the Nutcracker. Good. Side cut. More. And top cut, just so you're off of. Just a straight line off of the portal above. That's good.
The Cincinnati Ballet dancers arrived in Anchorage on Monday, November 19th.
We got there on a Monday. We went into the theater on Tuesday. We rehearsed Tuesday and Wednesday, had Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, and then we opened on Friday with 2 shows Saturday, 2 shows Sunday. It's a very interesting thing to do when you tour to another city and you have to use their children as well, because obviously there's a lot of children in Nutcracker. It's very different than going somewhere and just doing ballets that the company is actually doing. When we have to collaborate with the school, it takes a lot of rehearsal time. We sent our children's ballet mistress out to Anchorage over the summer, I think, and she casted all the children's roles like Clara, the soldiers, the bumblebees, the Mother Ginger children, things like that. She casted all of that and she rehearsed them, and then they had to rehearse on their own with their instructor until the Cincinnati Ballet dancers got there. We went into the theater on a Tuesday, and the crew for that theater also had to learn the show and put all the sets that we brought up.
So on Tuesday, the rehearsals began with the company dancers and the children's cast.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, and young, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and
The Cincinnati Ballet's crew worked with the Alaska crew to make the magic of the props and scenery changes come to life.
I work on the props crew, and essentially what we're doing is anything that's about as tall as I am and smaller that has to be taken on stage and touched. We pretty much will put it all on the stage and move on and off. So we've been essentially putting all the little pieces together, like off the screen right here. There's several pieces of furniture and a big giant orange that's sitting in a big giant bowl, and our job is essentially to make all these things look realistic enough so that the kids out there will really believe that these people were dreaming and everything grew really big.
Everybody's might want to pick up the doll stage left. Like 151. Go. Let's go. Stand by spot 1 to fade out, change to frame 1. Stand by spot 2 to fade out, change to frame 1.
What would the Nutcracker be without live music? Our own Carmen de Leon conducted an orchestra of musicians from Anchorage.
We have a brand new production. You know, this was the first time we had played it outside of Cincinnati. So there was a lot to get together in a very short time in Anchorage. And the orchestra there is only available in the evenings because the members of the orchestra work other jobs. Playing in the symphony is not necessarily their only occupation. That's an important difference between the Anchorage Orchestra and the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, which is made up of entirely professional musicians, and that is their only work. So you can imagine the quality of players that come to the Cincinnati Symphony that plays here in Cincinnati for us is very high because they are full-time professionals. But I must say the Anchorage Orchestra was very cooperative, played very well, and was very flexible as far as our rehearsals were concerned, because we were just putting together almost a whole brand new show. After we had done it the first time here in Cincinnati, we were taking it to out of town for the second time. That was the second time we had ever performed the brand new Nutcracker, and so it kind of helped us prepare when we got back home. We felt extra comfortable about performing it here in the second year.
On Wednesday evening, it was time for the dress rehearsal with the orchestra before an invited audience to work out some of the kinks in the show. On Thanksgiving Day, the dancers and staff came together at the hotel for a Thanksgiving dinner provided by wonderful donors from Cincinnati. The Nutcracker opened its run of 6 shows on Friday to full houses and an enthusiastic holiday crowd. 6 shows over the weekend, the dancers flew home on Sunday with a few flight delays, and the crew began the tear down and load out process so that the props, scenery, and costumes would make it back in time for our opening night in Cincinnati. So, why take the Nutcracker from Cincinnati to Alaska? We'll let Victoria Morgan tell you.
I think it's important because it gives you performance opportunity. Truly, we have a limited number of performances here. To really grow and evolve as an artist and understand a role and get to different layers of that role. Well, I really would love it that I'd love as many people to see it as possible. I mean, it was huge investment for the company, and I think the company looks great in it. It's got a lot of spirit and personality, and it would be lovely if I'd love it that our community comes out for it. I think every year it's been, I think last year we had 27,000. The first year we did it, we had over 30,000 people who saw it. And so it would be lovely to have that in front of new eyes and new audiences. And yeah, I was very excited when the possibility of Anchorage, Alaska came up. Another big initiative that we feel is important to the organization is for us to get out there into not only our community and in our region, but have more of a national presence. We just feel that, with more of a reputation, we'll be stronger. And it's not only about building the local reputation, but, our dancers come to us from not only around the country, but around the world. And so when dancers out in the dance community are hearing, oh, that company is touring, it's expensive, and a lot of companies don't tour anymore, and as we know, several companies don't even exist anymore, but touring is something that dancers really like, so it attracts a higher caliber for us.
And that's the story of how the Cincinnati Ballet took the Nutcracker on the road to Anchorage, Alaska.